Hi everyone, welcome back to the cottage. I'm so glad that you're here. Today we're going to be talking about what I consider to be one of the fundamental building blocks of organizing as a minimalist, and that is the use of containers. So you probably have quite a few of these types of things around your home, baskets and bins and the like. We put things inside of them, but generally we don't give them a whole lot of thought. Today though, I want to challenge you to think about these little containers as one of the most important tools that you have in your organizing toolbox. The concept that I'm going to share was most popularly explained by Dana K. White from the blog A Slob Comes Clean, and she says that basically some people intuitively know this, but many others, they need to learn it. Even though it is so simple, it basically all comes down to this phrase: containers are meant to contain. The word contain literally means to set a limit. Limits when it comes to organizing are very, very important. I mentioned this in a recent video when I talked about the key to keeping your home tidy. And really, it's no big secret that when you limit your inventory or the amount of belongings you have, it is much easier for you to keep them well maintained and in order. So while a lot of people only think of containers as a place to put things, that's really only part of the equation. In fact, it is creating a boundary of which you should make every attempt not to cross. Now I want you to take a step back from that small container and look at this concept from a much more broad perspective. Think about your home. Your home essentially is also a container. Even though you've probably never thought of it that way, it does contain your belongings inside of it, and it also sets a limit on how much you can keep inside of it. When people cross the boundary of that limit of how much their home can hold, those people generally have a mental disorder such as hoarding or something like that. So most people don't get to that level. But let's take a look inside of the house at each individual room as a container, and imagine the times that we have felt overwhelmed by the mess or clutter inside of an individual room and we couldn't figure out why that was the case. It is likely because we tried to put too much inside of what was a limiting boundary of how much the room could hold. Can you imagine this room in my home filled with 10 couches, 2 chairs, and a few television sets? It would be absolutely ridiculous. And although it does take quite a bit of effort to get a room completely unfunctional and unusable because of putting too much inside of it, what about those smaller containers in your home, such as closets and cabinets and drawers? These spaces can easily become overwhelmed and overfilled if we're not careful. And while it is definitely easier to overfill a container of this size than it is to overstuff your entire home, I would argue that being able to manage your limits and your boundaries at this level is going to really filter through. And if you're not able to keep this size of container under control, your home eventually will suffer as well. Let me give you a quick visual example of what I'm talking about. Alright, I've got a nice assortment of Lego bricks here for this demonstration. So I think most of us would agree that this type of item can't just be left to lay on the floor. It does need some sort of containment and some sort of organization. And so what typically happens is a person will go to the store and purchase some sort of container to put this type of item in. So I'm going to go ahead and put my Legos inside of my container. They don't all fit. And so as you can see, I still have a lot of Legos left, and so common practice for a lot of people is then to say, well, it's just that my container wasn't big enough, I need a bigger container. So they'd go to the store, buy a bigger container. But what happens once this container gets filled up? We are not keeping boundaries on ourselves, and so we just say, well, we still have more Legos and the container's full, so I guess we just need another container, or a bigger container. And you can see how this could absolutely multiply in our homes for a variety of different types of items. Pretty soon we start feeling that maybe our house isn't big enough, we need a larger house, we need more storage because we don't have space for the things that we have. When in reality, we're just not understanding boundaries. We haven't set the limit on how much we can keep of any given type of item, and that's what's causing us to feel overwhelmed and overcluttered. So while the idea of setting limits or boundaries might seem kind of restrictive on paper, in reality, setting these boundaries gives you a peace of mind in knowing how much you can comfortably hold and what you are able to keep. And so it really does help take the guesswork out of some of those decluttering decisions. And I want to be sure and mention that everyone is able to set their own boundaries and decide on how much the limit would be for any particular type of item in their home. So for example, while one person may think of a cabinet being a perfect container for the amount of dishes that they want to keep, somebody else might really appreciate dishes and find great value in them, have a great collection of them, and want an entire china hutch dedicated to that type of object, and that is totally okay. Those different ideas of how much is the appropriate amount. The key is to set the boundaries for yourself and then stick to them. I also want to give a quick word of caution for the overfilling of a container space and getting it to its absolute bursting maximum capacity. It might be tempting at times to put things into the container and really shove them in so that you can avoid having to decide which things to get rid of because they don't fit anymore. And this is a dangerous path to go down. I read a book about 3 years ago called New Minimalism, where they talked about the idea of full and how, especially in American culture, we have this kind of skewed idea of what full really means, and that it kind of means just bursting at the seams and it's absolutely filled to the max. And in reality, the perception of what is full does vary from person to person, but generally speaking, we should still be able to easily access what we have in our containers and see what we have. And it's not going to happen if everything is jam-packed in that space. All right, I want to show you a few different ways that we use containers in our home and show you how they help us to stay organized. One unique way that we use containers in our home is within our closets. And the closets themselves are containers, but we also think about our hangers as being containers as well, because we have a set number inside of each closet, and that is the max number of clothing articles that we can have inside of there. And so, for example, if I purchase a new shirt and bring it home, if there are no available hangers, that means that I know something inside of the closet is going to need to be decluttered, and I can kind of do that evaluation at that time. We also have found that using smaller containers to further divide larger containing spaces is very helpful because it helps us to really categorize where each thing is going to go. So a big example that we have here in our home is in our junk drawer, you might say, or our miscellaneous drawer in our mudroom, where we keep things like pencils and the tape measure and things like that. And having these smaller organization spots really helps to make sure that we maintain the organization within this larger container of the drawer. We also keep this basket by our couch, and this is where we keep all of our blankets for this living room. If we are sitting on the couch reading a book and we want to snuggle up with the blanket, it's great to have one easily accessible right here. And I know that if this basket becomes overfilled, that I'm going to need to reevaluate its contents and decide which things I want to keep. And the newest container that we have in our home is this little tote by Ollie. This is the Mimo Caddy. I was looking for some type of tote that I could use for any little day trips that the kids and I take throughout the summer, like a trip to the library or the beach or the park. I wanted something lightweight that I could bring in and out of the house and the vehicle to kind of get it set up and get it ready for all these different little adventures. And so when Ollie reached out to me asking if I would like to review this tote, I knew it would be a perfect fit, and I was so excited. This caddy has checked all the boxes that I was looking for. It is durable yet lightweight. It holds its shape even when it's empty. It has lots of little compartments so I can kind of define where I'm putting different things like water bottles or towels. And it even has a little side zipper pouch so that I don't even need to bring my purse with when we're going out. So this is a really great addition to our container family. If this is something that you're interested in, something you've been looking for, I will have a link to this product down below in my description box with a promotional code for a percentage off of your purchase. Alright, well I hope that this video gave you a little bit more insight into containers and how to think about them and use them properly. Although they do set limits and boundaries, those boundaries don't need to be restrictive. They can actually be quite freeing. If you are someone who struggles with clutter in your home, definitely be thinking about containers and how you can use them in your life. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope that you'll stop by the cottage again really soon.